God's name are you doing? Get off him!
Pachenko. The act of murder has long been an ugly staple of video games. Whether we respond by flattening marching mushrooms or firing rounds into the temporal lobes of those who oppose us, many games ask us to kill. But far fewer are willing to explore the psychology of the deed and the whirlwind of emotional turbulence it must provoke. Now, this game is far from a thesis on the subject, but it often toys with that psychology through a lens of physiological and mental decay. Are you killing to stay alive, or are you just killing? Ultimately, that's the question in Dead Space Extraction for the Nintendo Wii.
Just killed someone. We don't have time to think about that. If we don't fix that tether fast, we'll all be dead. Move!
You see, shortly after Extraction begins, you watch in horror as they tear a person to pieces. And as their attention shifts from the iron-tinged flavor of warm blood to the rhythmic thumps of your pounding heart, you can either kill these deranged, wild-eyed murderers, or be killed. The choice seems simple enough, but soon you find out it isn't. And moments like that are when Extraction's bleak and tragic story is at its bleak and tragic best. Of course, those familiar with the original Dead Space already know how this story ends, and more specifically, what was discovered at the onset of the first game. A prequel to that original, Extraction is a tragedy in motion. Yours and the fate of your companions was determined before you even picked up the remote, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to change it.
Damn it, rivet gun.
There aren't any princesses to save in this world. There's no heroic tale to fulfill. You just can't win this time. You can only hope to survive. At least, for a few hours. Let's start with the obvious. Extraction isn't the original Dead Space, but fortunately it shares the same spirit. From the devouring grip of its tragic story to its smooth controls and impressive visuals, Extraction simply refuses to be constrained by its own perceived limitations. Rather, it thrives in spite of them. These kinds of light gun-styled shooters are enjoying a bit of a resurgence on Wii, the catalyst of which has been Nintendo's pointer-enabled Wii Remote. The device is just inherently well-suited for shooters. The best games attest to that, and Extraction is one of them. As with most Wii shooters, the controls offer pixel-perfect precision and are very comfortable to use. And comfort is important. After all, you're being stalked by monsters of unspeakable terror in the frigid vacuum of space. Comfort is sort of hard to come by. So the controls are good, and fortunately, motion implementation is minimal. And when it's used, it actually adds to the experience. Walking through the game's blood-soaked corridors, for example, you'll often reach areas that are just totally engulfed in darkness. You can barely see in front of your face, but you can use a glow stick by shaking the Wii Remote. The harder you shake, the faster the faint light source activates, and it casts a disturbing green glow on your surroundings, and sometimes the rotting flesh of your enemies. Talk about an unpleasant surprise. So in almost every regard, Extraction just delivers. Now, it may not feature that fear-relieving corpse stomp from the original game, but picking off necromorph limbs is as satisfying as ever, and thanks to the Wii Remote, it's surgically precise, both alone and with a friend in cooperative play. There was an understandable amount of skepticism and even disappointment when it was unveiled that Dead Space would be coming to Wii in this particular form. On-rail shooters, for one reason or another, are viewed as inherently limited. Compared to the open 3D gameplay of the original, it seemed like more of a cheap cash-in than a serious Dead Space. But those worries were proven wrong. An on-rail shooter with a chip on its shoulder and something to say, Dead Space Extraction is a rarity. And it's one hell of a ride.
Something coming.